They say every man lives two lives. The one the world sees. And the one he carries quietly inside his heart. My name is Thomas Reed, and this is the one I've carried. I was just 18 when I raised my right hand and took the oath. The world was different then, the music was louder. The dreams were bigger, and we all thought we were invincible. My father had fought in Korea, my grandfather in the Great War before him. So, I guess you could say I was born with duty stitched into my blood. I still remember the day I left home. My mother pressed a Bible into my hand. And my old man gave me that look. The kind that says he's proud, even if he can't find the words. Boot camp hit me like a storm. Long runs before sunrise, blisters that burned like fire. And a sergeant who swore we'd thank him one day. I didn't believe him back then. But maybe I do. Ow. That's where I met the men who'd change my life. Carter, the one who laughed at everything. Said he'd open a bar when this was all over. Ramirez, quiet, steady, always praying under his breath. And Jackson, my brother in every way that mattered. Together, we weren't just soldiers. We were a family. Vietnam. Even now, I can smell the rain on the red soil. The air was thick, the nights long. And every sound in that jungle made your heart stop for a second. You didn't breathe, you just listened. Our first mission was simple, they said. Just a patrol. But nothing in war is ever simple. The trees exploded with gunfire. The world turned into chaos. And in that moment, I learned what fear really felt like. Carter got hit in the shoulder. Ramirez dragged him to safety while bullets tore the leaves above. I froze, just for a second, until I heard Jackson yell. "Move, Tommy. Move." And some. How, I did. When it was over, we sat there, soaked in rain and smoke. I looked at my hands, trembling. And I realized, this wasn't about medals or flags anymore. This was about each other. Keeping your brothers alive. That was all T. Hat mattered. That night, I wrote my first letter home. Told my mom I was fine. Told her the sunsets here were beautiful. I didn't tell her the truth. That the only color I saw was red. I think that's when I stopped being a boy. Somewhere in that jungle. Between fear and courage. I became a soldier. Not because I wanted to. But because I had to. That was the beginning of everything. The start of the life that shaped me. Broke me. And taught me what it truly means to serve. Vietnam. You never really leave that place. You might come home. But the jungle comes with you. It hides in your memories. In the quiet moments. In the smell of rain and smoke. We'd been there 6 months when I learned what real loss meant. 6 months of patrols, ambushes, and sleepless nights. 6 months of pretending fear didn't exist. By then, we were ghosts. Men who moved through mud and fire like shadows. One morning, our unit got orders to clear a village near the Mekong River. Suspected Viet Cong stronghold, they said. We moved out before sunrise. Quiet, focused, hearts beating in rhythm with our rifles. When we reached the village, it was empty. No gunfire. No voices. Just the sound of wind through broken roofs. Carter joked, maybe they heard we were coming. I smiled. But something didn't feel right. The blast threw me backward. Dirt rained from the sky. I couldn't hear anything but ringing. When I opened my eyes, Jackson was gone. I found him minutes later, or maybe it was hours, I don't know. He was lying still. The men who once laughed louder than anyone didn't make a sound. His dog tags were warm in my hand. And for the first time, I understood what war takes from you. It takes the best ones. First. After that day, something in me changed. I stopped writing letters home. I stopped counting days. Every time we went out, I told myself it didn't matter if I came back. I just didn't want anyone else to die on my watch. A few weeks later, our platoon got caught in a firefight by the river. Bullets tore through the air like angry bees. Ramirez was hit, but he kept shooting. I dragged him behind cover. Blood soaking through his uniform. His rosary clenched tight in his hand. He looked at me and whispered, "Tell my mama I wasn't afraid." Then, he was gone. 2 brothers. Gone in the span of a month. I used to think the worst sound in war was gunfire. But it's not. The worst sound is silence. The kind that comes after the shooting stops. When you realize who isn't answering roll call. After that, I carried their dog tags around my neck. Every mission, every mile. They reminded me who I was fighting for. Not a flag. Not a country. But for the brothers who gave everything. By the time I came home in '71, the war had changed us all. The medals felt heavy, the cheers hollow. People called us heroes. But I couldn't see one in the mirror. I saw men who'd lived through hell. And wasn't sure how to live in peace. That's the thing about war. It doesn't end when you leave the battlefield. It follows you home. Sits beside you at night. And whispers the names of the ones you lost. Jackson. Ramirez. Carter. My brothers. My ghosts. My forever family. Years passed. The jungle faded, the memories didn't. I thought I'd left war behind in Vietnam. But somehow, war always finds those who can't live without purpose. I stayed in the army. Maybe because I didn't know how to be anything else. Maybe because out there, among the uniforms and orders, I still felt like I belonged somewhere. When the Gulf War started, I was already a seasoned man. 20 years in, lines on my face, and ghosts in my mind. I wasn't that 18-year-old kid anymore. I was the one yelling, "Move. Cover fire. Get your head down." I was the one responsible for keeping boys alive. Funny thing about war. It changes locations, uniforms, even languages. But it never really changes its rhythm. The sound of fear is the same everywhere. The desert was its own kind of hell. The days burned like fire. The nights froze your bones. You couldn't see the enemy. Just endless miles of sand and the sound of your own ear. Beat. I lost men there too. Not many, thank God. But even one feels like a lifetime. You carry their faces. Their last words. Their unfinished dreams. I remember one young private, Taylor. Barely 20. He'd write his mom every night, no matter how tired he was. One morning, during a convoy, our lead vehicle hit an IED. When the smoke cleared, Taylor was gone. Just like that. No warning, no time to say goodbye. I picked up his letter that day. It was half-written. Said, "Don't worry, Mom. I'm safe." I carried that letter in my pocket for the rest of the war. After the Gulf, I told myself I'd retire. Go home. Live a normal life. But peace. Peace didn't know my address anymore. I'd lie awake at night, hearing echoes. Not of gunfire, but of promises I see. I'll keep. Then came 2003. Iraq. Another generation of boys going to fight another war. And there I was again. Older now, a mentor, a leader. Trying to teach them lessons I'd learned the hard way. They reminded me of us. Bright-eyed, brave, full of belief. They called me Old Man Reed. I used to laugh and tell them, there's no such thing as an old soldier. Just one who survived long enough to tell the story. I tried to protect them. Every one of them. But war doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care about your years, your medals, your prayers. It just takes. One night, we got ambushed outside Fallujah. The sky lit up with tracers. Sand turned into fire. And everything went silent except the pounding in my chest. We lost 3 good men that night. Kids. Bear. L. Y out of high school. When the dust settled, I walked among the wreckage and whispered their names. The same way I had in Vietnam. Different war. Same pain. That night, I sat alone in the Humvee. And I finally broke down. After decades of holding it in. I cried. For Jackson. For Ramirez. For Taylor. For every soul that never got to grow old. People think soldiers are made of steel. We're not. We're made of memories. And some of them cut deeper than any bullet ever could. When I came home that time, I didn't even unpack right away. I just stood there, in front of my house, listening to the silence. For the first time, I realized I wasn't at war anymore. But I also wasn't sure how to be at peace. The long wars took many things from me. Friends, sleep, faith. But they also gave me something I never expected. Understanding. Of what it means to lead. Of what it means to love. And of what it costs to keep on living. When so many others could not. That was the last time I saw battle. But not the last time I faced the war. Because the hardest battles, they're the ones you fight inside. Coming home should have felt like victory. But when I stepped off that plane, the silence hit me harder than any explosion ever did. My wife, Mary, was there waiting. She smiled, but it was the kind of smile people wear when they're not sure what to say. We'd been married over 30 years, but the war had taken more time than I'd ever realized. We hugged. And for a moment, I thought maybe everything could go back to how it used to be. But some things don't go backward. The house felt smaller somehow. The walls too quiet. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., expecting the sound of boots, radios, orders. Instead, there was nothing. Just my own heartbeat and the wind outside. Mary tried to help. God bless her, she really did. But I'd sit on the porch for hours, just staring at the horizon. She'd ask, "Tom, what are you thinking about?" And I'd lie. I'd say, "Nothing." But the truth was, I was thinking about everyone who wasn't sitting beside me. I joined a support group for veterans. First day I walked in, the room was full of men who looked just like me. Tired eyes, strong hands, quiet hearts. We didn't say much. We didn't have to. One man stood up and said, "I left the war. But the war didn't leave me." And that hit me like a punch. Because it was true. Nights were the hardest. I'd dream of the desert, of the jungle. Of voices calling my name from somewhere far away. Sometimes I'd wake up shouting, drenched in sweat. Mary would hold my hand until I stopped shaking. Every morning, I'd apologize. Every morning, she'd say, "It's okay." But it never felt okay. I started volunteering at the local base. Talking to young soldiers who'd just come home. They reminded me of myself. Proud, strong, but carrying more than they could explain. I'd tell them stories, not of medals or victories, but of friendship, love, and loss. I told them the truth. That the hardest part of being a soldier isn't the fighting. It's learning how to live afterward. One day, a young kid named Marcus came to me after a session. He said he was thinking of ending it all. I looked him in the eyes and saw that same darkness I used to feel. So I told him about Jackson. About Ramirez. About Taylor. And how they didn't die so we could give up. I told him, "You honor them. By living." A week later, Marcus showed up again, smiling this time. Said he'd signed up for college. That was the first time in years I felt something close to peace. Because maybe, just maybe, saving one life can make up for losing so many. Life got quieter after that. Mary and I would sit on the porch together, watching the sun go down behind the trees. She'd rest her hand on mine. And for a few moments, the world would feel gentle again. I learned something in those years. War teaches you how to fight. But peace teaches you how to forgive. Forgive the world. Forgive yourself. And remember that even the deepest scars are proof that you survived. I wasn't the same man who left all those years ago. And maybe that's okay. Maybe we're not supposed to be. Maybe growing older means learning to make peace with your ghosts. And thanking them for the lesson they left behind. These days, I still wear their dog tags around my neck. Not out of guilt anymore, but out of love. Because every heartbeat I still have. One they never got. That's the price of peace. It's not silence. It's learning to live with the noise that never goes away. And finding grace inside it. I never thought I'd grow old. Most soldiers don't. You spend so long thinking about survival that when life finally gives you years, you almost don't know what to do with them. These days, my knees ache, my hands tremble. And sometimes, I forget where I put my coffee. But I remember every face I ever fought beside. Funny, isn't it? The mind forgets birthdays and dates. But it never forgets the people who mattered. There's a military cemetery just outside of town. Rows of white stones lined up like a silent parade. I go there every Memorial Day. Bring a few flags, a handful of flowers. And a heart full of names. I talk to them like they're still here. Jackson, Ramirez, Carter, Taylor, all of them. I tell them about Mary. About Marcus, that young soldier I told you about. He's married now, has a daughter. Named her Faith. That kid gave me hope when I didn't think I had any foot. Sometimes I sit there for hours. Just listening to the wind move through the grass. It sounds almost like whispers. Voices of the past saying, "We're still with you." I used to ask myself why I was the one who made it home. Why them, not me? Took me years to understand there's no answer to that. Life isn't fair. It's just fragile. And the best we can do is live in a way that honors those who can't. I've learned that bravery doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes, bravery is just getting up in the morning, making coffee, and facing another day with an open heart. Sometimes, it's saying, "I love you" when it's hard. Or forgiving yourself for the things you can change. I used to think my story ended on the battlefield. But maybe this part. Right here, right now. Sitting on this porch. Watching the sun fall behind the trees. Maybe this is where it really ends. Mary passed a few years ago. Peacefully, thank God. I like to think she's waiting for me. Somewhere quiet. Maybe on a porch like this one. Smiling that same gentle smile he always had. I'm not afraid of the end anymore. I've seen enough of life to know that everything we love, everything we lose, somehow finds its way back to us in the end. So when my time comes, don't call me a hero. Just say I was a man who tried his best, who loved his brothers, who served his country, and who found peace. Not in medals or battles, but in forgiveness. This morning, I folded my old uniform. The patches faded, the fabric worn thin. I placed it on the bed. And beside it, my cap. Then I looked in the mirror and saluted. One last time. Not for myself, but for them. For every name etched in stone. For every soul that gave their tomorrow. So we could have our today. War made me a soldier. But living made me a man. If you ever meet a veteran, don't just thank them for their service. Ask them for their story. Because inside every old soldier lives 1,000 untold battles. And a heart that never stopped fighting. To my brothers, wherever you are. This is my last salute.